Nicely done.
I gotta turn this thing on. This is the same problem I had before on this thing?
Diana,
Oh,
December 8th, 2026.
26, okay. It'll be here before you know. Thank you.
okay, good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. This is this regular meeting of the Scio Township Zoning Board of Appeals for November 21st, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order. Ask Mr. Shields to call the roll.
Off,
Here.
Ramey,
Here.
Walsh,
Here.
Shields here, Noel.
Here.
Everyone's here. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Anybody want to add or subtract anything? Otherwise, I'll solicit motion.
Move to approve as is.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Walsh, seconded by Ms. Ramey to adopt the agenda as published. Mr. Shields, would you be so kind as to call the roll?
Ramey?
No,
That's right.
yes.
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 The answer is yes.
Yes.
Well, it could be no, but I'm not supporting it otherwise.
He's staggering.
Yes.
He's staggering.
Okay,
So we heard that we should move it around so there's not a pattern to it. So
yes, okay.
always do what I'm told. Walsh,
Yes.
Shields, yes, Noel.
Yes.
Off,
Yes. The agenda is adopted as published. Next item on the agenda is communications and correspondence. Some of us received today, and if you were on it, I put it in front of you where I thought you might be a Michigan planner from the Michigan chapter of the American Planning Association. We have a couple of items of correspondence, but they relate to the public hearing later on. We'll deal with them at that point. Anybody else have any communications or correspondence? All right, then the next item on the agenda is the swearing in of persons giving testimony during a public hearing. The folks who are going to be speaking today on the record, I'd ask you to stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony in these proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yeah, I do. Great, thanks. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing. I'll declare the meeting, the public hearing open for possible action on variance number 24007, Spencer and Evelyn Roberts by North Coast Solar for 5216 Pratt Road, H-08-15-396-001 to allow a reduction in the required 50-foot rear yard setback to 38 feet to allow a ground mounted solar array pursuant to section 36-75 schedule of regulations of the Scio Township ordinance. Before I forget, before we go any further, is Mr. Little on?
Yes.
Checking. For the folks that are here, this will be, or for the folks on Zoom, this will be the general method of how we'll deal with the public hearing. After announcing the subject of the appeal, which I just did, I will summarize the procedures, which will be using during the hearing. I'll call on the petitioner or the petitioner's representative to present their statements in support of the appeal along with any supporting evidence. The petitioner, his or her agent or attorney may present his or her case, including presenting witnesses on his or her behalf. After that, members of the ZBA shall report on any site inspection and any conversations which the petitioner may have had with them. After that time, members of the public who support the petitioner will speak and correspondence is read. After that time, members of the public who oppose the petitioner speak and correspondence is read. I may permit the petitioner, since I'm the chairperson, to rebut within reasonable limits. After which time, upon motion of any ZBA member, the hearing will be closed and or I will announce a continuation of the public hearing to another specified time and date. If the hour is late or additional pertinent information must be obtained. After which time the ZBA will deliberate amongst themselves and decide the issue, or if a majority of members decide more information or clarification is necessary, the issue will be or may be postponed to a future hearing. With that in mind, who will be speaking first on behalf of the petitioner?
Myself.
The homeowner, Evelyn.
Oh, could you please come up to the table here and give us your name and address, please?
There, my name is Evelyn Roberts. I live at 5216 Pratt Road.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Roberts.
Some remarks. I say, good evening, members of the board. I am Evelyn Roberts. I'm here tonight with my husband Spencer Roberts and the owner of North Coast Solar, James Johns. I'm both a homeowner and the owner of a local real estate brokerage in Ann Arbor. So thank you for the opportunity to present my request for a zoning variance to place a solar ground mount system 38 feet from the back lot rather than the required 50 feet. And I'm here to explain why this adjustment is so important to my family and why it aligns with broader community values. My family is deeply committed to sustainability and reducing our reliance on traditional power sources. We're concerned about climate change and want to do our part to reduce our carbon footprint. In addition to pursuing solar energy, I drive an electric vehicle, furthering our commitment to renewable energy. Installing solar panels has been a natural extension of these efforts and will allow us to move closer to energy independence. Over my past 3.5 years of living in Scio Township, we've experienced multiple extended power outages, two of which have lasted 5 to 7 days. Meanwhile, DTE's rates have increased by about 17%. A ground-mounted solar system with battery backup provides the opportunity to avoid these disruptions and support our energy needs sustainably. As the owner and managing broker of a local real estate company, I see this project as a chance to lead by example. Many clients express interest in solar energy, but hesitate due to uncertainty. By adopting solar on my property, I can share firsthand experience and inspire others to consider this option. The installation not only benefits my family, but fosters a forward-thinking and sustainable community. While rooftop solar seems like a great alternative, it is neither practical nor cost-effective for us. Our roof's orientation and shading would require more panels to meet our energy needs, significantly increasing the cost. Additionally, our 15-year-old roof will likely need replacement in the next decade, requiring an additional $12,000 to remove and reinstall the panels, plus the cost of the roof itself. A ground-mounted system avoids these challenges and allows us to make more responsible investment in renewable energy. Another critical point is that moving the ground mount system forward to meet the 50-foot setback would push the system into our septic field expansion area, risking disruption of our wastewater management system. This could pose significant environmental and functional risks. The proposed placement is carefully chosen to avoid these issues while minimizing disruption to the lot and neighborhood. Regarding the opposition to this variance, I'd like to address the letter submitted by the builder who does not intend to live on the property. Their claims about negative impacts on property values are speculative and not based on any lived experience. In contrast, our neighbor most affected by the system has submitted a letter of support, as well as my other neighbors to our west. This demonstrates that those who actually will live near the system see no issues with its placement. Additionally, the builder uses local high school students as labor to teach construction skills. Research shows that climate change is a top concern for Generation Z and Alpha. This project could serve as an excellent teaching opportunity to demonstrate green building practices and renewable energy integration. By opposing this variance, the builder misses an opportunity to align with these priorities and inspire future builders. Their suggestion of just enrolling in programs like MI Green Power do not address the power reliability issue. Finally, the condition of the vacant lot owned by this builder undermines their stated concerns about property values. The lot has been neglected, with neighbors, including myself, taking responsibility for its upkeep. This neglect does not reflect their claim of care for neighborhood aesthetics or property values. Whereas our solar system will be well maintained and demonstrate the benefits of renewable energy. In closing, granting this variance will allow us to invest in an environmentally friendly solution that aligns with our family's values and addresses practical concerns like power reliability. It also supports the community by normalizing renewable energy adoption and providing a model for sustainable living. Thank you for your time and consideration.
I've got just a question, a clarification question. You were referring to the builder.
Yes, the owner of the lot to the east of us.
Are you talking about the Ann Arbor Student Building Industry Program?
Yes.
Okay, we do have a letter, just for the record, we do have a letter from John Fingerly, who identifies as the director and immediate past president of the Ann Arbor Student Building Industry Program, dated, and the letter is dated November 19th, 2024. And Ms. Roberts also referred to a letter of support, which is in the materials that we have. I just want to get it correctly. By Mr. Mr. Courtney, Courtney Burke, Burk, of 5045 John Holmes Road, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48103. The letter is dated October 6th, 2024. And going back a little bit, the letter we received from Ann Arbor Student Building Industry Program refers to the parcel which it owns east of 5216 Pratt Road. So far, so good on this?
Correct.
Okay. I know, I'll just take this opportunity to also say we received today, did everyone see that today? Mr. Shields got a blank look.
Yeah, didn't receive an additional one.
I'll show it to you in just a second. We received another one dated today from McGovern's, signed Judy McGovern, 5027 John Holmes Road, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48103. And I'll read it into the record. It's dated today. It says Scio Township ZBA raised setback variance proposed for 5216 Pratt Road. Greetings. We've just been made aware of the request to install a ground mount solar array outside the normal rear yard setback. There are undoubtedly reasons for the proposed siting, but without better information, we think it prudent to oppose the variance. Unfortunately, the notice of the request reached us less than 48 hours before the hearing. Earlier outreach might have made it possible to learn more and resolve questions. As it is, we prefer protecting setbacks and hope that other siting options are workable. Signed, Judy McGovern. I'm told that's part of the packet that's on the website now. That's what Fran said in her email. I'm going to show it to Mr. Shields because he hasn't seen it. If he could show it to you. So when you finish with it, Patrick.
When was it, the packet updated? I checked it around 3 o'clock.
I don't know what the timing of it was. I'd have to check to see what the email date was. It came in late. I don't know when.
It's on
But it
there
came in
now.
today.
It's in the packet now.
Yeah, it is in, well,
What's-
that's what the email says. It was placed in the packet.
What is the address of the
5027 John Holmes Road.
They wanted to see it.
You wanna talk about how that's not even about the
I'm looking at the lot in question. That lot doesn't even touch our property. They can't see our property at all from their backyard. So I'd like that to be taken into consideration that they can't see our house.
Feels, the secretary will, show you a copy of that letter. I'd like to have it back, it's the only one I got. Stay there.
Okay. Well,
Finished reviewing it, Ms. Roberts?
I mean, yes, I can see
Okay,
it.
thank you. All right, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to get
I
the,
appreciate it, but I'd also just like to state that we can't see their backyard. They can't see our backyard.
okay. Go ahead, though, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I did finish my speech, but you just said you had questions for me. So is it next person on the agenda or?
It's up to you, you are the people who are the petitioner.
Okay,
It is your responsibility. I'm sorry.
I know they do have to go, but they're here in support, because.
It's up to you.
Okay.
This is your time. You can call your witnesses.
Okay, I'd like to call, Jim and Karen Toth. They live at 1030.
Could you state your names and addresses to the record, please?
Yes, I am Karen Toth,
Spell
I
your
live
last name, please.
Toth. I live at 1030 Wing Drive. I can directly see their backyard. I have no objections to the array being put there. They have maintained their property. They've improved it. They've done nothing but been wonderful neighbors since they've moved in. And I have no doubt that the reason that they've chosen the placement of the solar array is what they have to do, and that they will maintain it and make it the most beneficial to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Sir?
Yes, my name is James Toth, same address, 1030 Wing Drive, Ann Arbor. I basically would like to make the same sentiments my wife already has. You know, the people wanting, the variance, Evelyn and Spencer are good people. They've been here for 3 years and they worked really hard getting a house that was not really up to neighborhood standards to be, you know, a house, one, that they can be proud of, and two, that the rest of the neighborhood can be proud of. The yard is maintained, everything is maintained. And, you know, like I say, they're good people, and what they want to do, I see as no infringement on my enjoyment of my property. I see it as no lessening of the value of my property. And I am 100% in support of them getting the variance to allow them to do what they want to do. We've had more than our share of issues with the power that we get from DTE. Recently, they put in a line that has helped us. I don't know if it helps them at all for where they are in with the way the feed comes into the neighborhood. But for our house, I mean, we were constantly losing power, and that's been fixed and upgraded. But the fact that, you know, the fact of the matter is solar energy is going to be very passive and, you know, reduces the carbon footprint, which we would be in, you know, all in favor of doing on our property as well. And I see this as, you know, an opportunity to put a stake in the ground to say that we're in support of this. And, you know, the more people in the neighborhood and in Scio Township that do this, it's all the better for the environment, you know, in general, and for the entire community on planet Earth here. So, like I say, we're in favor of it and would certainly hope that the board decides in favor of Spencer and Evelyn's request. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Toth. Ms. Roberts, who are you gonna call next?
I'd like to introduce James Johns. He's the owner of North Coast Solar. He'll be installing our system.
Last name, sir?
Johns, James Johns, like Jimmy Johns. But I'm not fast, so. Thank you. I just wanted to, let everybody know, just when we met Evelyn and Spencer, the process that we've gone through to get to this point. We've been in business almost 5.5 years. Our North Coast Solar, we're actually out of Davison, Michigan. And we started our company because there's a lot of companies out there that were doing things wrong or misleading people on how solar really works. Our mission is to give people the truth about how things really will work for them, their property, and align with their life plan, and advise them on whether going solar is a good decision for them financially, as well as obviously a lot of people's motivation is to reduce their carbon footprint. So when we originally applied for permits with Scio Township, I was aware that Scio Township has a 50-foot setback code. We've done other installations, ground mount installations in the township. So when we originally planned the location of the ground mount, it was obviously done with the best interest in mind of the best location for sunlight for production, but also took into consideration that 50-foot setback code that we're aware of. That's why it originally was designed to be on top of the septic field. We weren't exactly sure where the septic field was. We knew we were probably close. Once we were informed from the county, Washington County, the health department, and I have their email here, the lawyer actually
I
requested.
see it.
Yeah. He actually requested that.
Is it on your computer? You don't have it printed out?
I do not have it printed out. No, I was told I would be able to pull up my Google Drive on a screen to show everybody these things from Fran,
Well,
which I'm happy to do.
Angela.
You have to
Yeah.
sign in, you have to sign into the meeting first, and then I can give you access to the screen.
Sure. Can I connect to the Scio guest Wi-Fi? Do you have a password for that?
Where it is Scio_guest. Capital G for guest. Or no, sorry, that's SSID. Excuse me. Welcome to the number 2 Scio !
Is it capital S or?
Capital S for Scio.
The password is welcome to !
Welcome to Scio !
And Scio is capitalized.
Yes, it's capitalized.
How about welcome?
Welcome is capital. W is so.
So capital W,
Yep.
ELCOME, all lowercase, the number 2,
Right.
capital S, CIO !
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Alright. Alright, I'm connected. There's a Zoom invite that I can go to, is that correct?
Yeah.
Would you like my email so you can send that? That'd be easiest,
Oh.
or I can go to a Zoom if you have a.
It's,
Is the link on the agenda? Yeah.
yeah, it's on the agenda to the meeting. You'd have to go to the Scio Township website. And we have it here if you want to manually do it. It's pretty long. It's relatively long, but you could probably type it in. You have a copy of the agenda right there in front of you,
Here.
Mr. Johns?
It was emailed to me, I can pull it up on the email.
He's gonna give you one. There are answers over there.
Thank you. That's a long one. I didn't get the actual agenda emailed to me, but it was forwarded to Evelyn. So I can go here. Look, let me copy this.
won't let me copy it. Let me open this with Doc Hub.
Any luck?
Yeah.
You go onto the Zoom, share my screen on Zoom, is what I think they want me to do. But
If you join the meeting, then Angela can share the screen, I think.
out of here, it's because it's a PDF version. It's not saying copyable. Yeah, why don't I just go to their, is there a way to join the the Zoom from the website? And Zoom-
Or you just,
Oh.
it's right there, go back.
Okay.
Agenda packet. Or this is with Zoom link. Go back.
Oh, yeah.
That one.
Thank you,
And click there.
perfect. That should be copy, well, meeting ID.
Yeah.
There we go.
Just till the 7th.
Now this. Zoom. TikTok.
Yes.
You can put it in the Google, put it in Chrome as a web address.
That's true too. Actually, for years, sites.
Recording in progress.
Turn my volume down. So I believe I'm on the, oh yeah, there we are. Good lord. I didn't know I was so great.
Congratulations.
We got my, can you unmute me or what, or? I can do that. There, now I'm unmuted.
Well, you're on the microphone here, so.
Okay, so you guys can hear me fine. I think you have to make me a co-host so I can share my screen though. Let's see if it'll let me share.
Yes. That's your mom for the days of paper.
Everybody can see that screen right now?
Yep.
Minimize that.
You need to click on yes. On there, I think he does.
Just get rid of the app.
I assume so.
We're good.
Okay.
Let me pull up my map. Here we are. Here we are. Everything's in here. So you were asking about the email from the county?
Email or letter or whatever you received.
Here's the email from the county. On September 10th, Mr. James Glide of Washtenaw County, the health
I'll
department.
read it into the record. Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Tom, do you need your speaker? Do you use your microphone?
Say again?
Do you need that?
The secondary recording,
Secondary
we're
recording.
good.
No.
Good, okay.
Okay, this is a email to
our office our
Well, the first
operations
one is,
manager.
Eric, Bushard at, apparently North Coast, Mr. Bushard.
He's our operations manager.
Okay, great, and, it, is dated Tuesday, September 10th. Doesn't say the year, but I presume it's 2024, 11:59 a.m. For Roberts, exclamation, apparently need to move location of array. And then, forwarded, a message from James Glide, GLIDE, at glidej@washtenaw.org, dated Tuesday, September 10th, 2024 at 11:43 a.m. Subject addition to review application for 5216 Pratt Road, need changes, and it says to office@northcoast-solar.com. Hello, I am reviewing the addition review application for 5216 Pratt Road, where the solar panels have been placed is directly over the existing septic drain field and reserve area. The panels will need to be moved to a different location, not over the drain field, reserve, or septic tank, or the application will be denied. I have attached the current plan and a plan showing the drain field location. Thanks, James Glide, REHS Sanitarium, Washtenaw County Health Department, Environmental Health Division, with the phone number, fax number, and address of 705 North Z Road. Do you have a copy of that plan showing the drain field location?
Yeah, that should have been, that should be provided already. It's right. It's in the packet, but I can show it to you right here as
Well,
well.
that's just a draw, that's a handwritten thing.
This is
You
from,
have,
That's.
this is
what
from
they
Scio
sent you?
Township. Yeah, this is from Scio Township. This is approved from, I got this from here, showing the,
no, but where's the drawing from the drain from the Department of Sanitation? What, the Washtenaw County?
they didn't provide that.
Well, it
They-
says so in his email. Unless I'm misreading it.
You would have attached it, correct? You are not.
Perhaps I'm misreading it.
No, you're not mistaken at all. I believe you are correct. That would be,
See, that's one of the, actually, that's one of the questions I had. Where the location of the drain field is and where the location of the reserve is. I understand they're requiring reserves on everything now. And that's really not clear from anything I've seen.
this is all that he provided here.
Okay,
It's,
so there is,
it's almost identical to what the Scio Township provided as well. Drain field and reserve are exactly, this is what the health department provided, that as well as this was the original design. Which you can see that the one corner is well within 50 feet. The corner that is under question is this one here to the east, which that would only be 38 feet. The array will be on an angle to match the angle of the property line.
is there any chance we can get this printed out? Cause and make it part of the record? Cause this is the type of thing we really need in advance.
It's actually in the packet already. It's just in a different,
Where's
Well,
that?
it's similar.
it's the one that was Scio Township approved.
No, that's not it. This is the actual drawing. That's a handwritten.
This is actually a design that we had made to show the location. This is the design that was denied by the health department. This is what we had made.
That's your drawing,
Yes.
but this other one is.
The other one here, this is what the health department gave us, just this hand drawing. This is from Washtenaw County.
The rudimentary
That's
one
not
is,
a hand drawing. This one?
that one's from Washtenaw County, Scio Township. The rudimentary one.
You're saying two different things here. Is it Washtenaw County or is it Scio Township, this particular document?
This drawing is from Washtenaw County. I don't know where they got it.
Well, they get it from their records.
This one,
But there's no,
if I can show you. This is the one that's on record here.
well, that's somebody who made all the drawing on it.
Somebody from Scio Township.
Well,
This is-
they would only do that based upon information that was given to them.
The
Tom,
town, it
it's
looks
dated
like Scio
19
Township approved it
Yeah, I know.
in 1999.
Yeah, well, no, it's probably not 1999. This is just a,
It's
That was-
dated,
it's
that
a
was for
mortgage
the-
survey.
it's dated,
No,
Tom.
that looks like something from the Scio Township Health Department, that when they approved it. The Washington County Health Department, when they approved
Yeah.
the location of the drain field originally back in the nineties. That's how I was, yeah, that's what I would, yeah. Yeah, that would look like. That's in a lot of our files. So Washtenaw County Building Department approves things after Scio Township gives them the okay
Right,
administrative approval
and they,
from Carlisle Wortman.
and this would have, yeah, but that,
So the county may have, I mean, the township signed off probably in some
oh, this
capacity.
is Scio Township approved in
Yes.
nineteen ninety-nine.
99.
That's
Yes.
that's what she was
I
saying.
misunderstood what you were saying. I'm getting old.
We all are.
Yeah.
That's really the only record. That's really the only record of where they know that the drain field is.
Say that again,
That's
Ms. Rupp?
really the only record of where the drain field and section 1 where it says that's the expansion area. Where the corner of where we want to put the array is in question. Original, yes.
So if you use the garage here as the reference, I don't know if you can see my cursor, it says, proposed garage, which is currently there. The septic field is directly next to it, drain field and the leach field is there. So when the county told us that we need to move the ground mount back, we did so.
Well, they didn't say they had to move it back. They just needed to adjust it.
Yeah, it needed to be moved off of the drain field, so we moved it back off the drain field, which then impeded on the setback code for Scio Township on the one, up for about a third of it, because you're at 38 feet to about a third way down, you're not at 50 feet. So we were actually given approval for that new location, but our operations manager, having the integrity that he has, halted and let Laura know, are you sure that we're approved? Because that is gonna violate your setback code. And she's like, hey, there's an email here saying, thank you for pointing that out. And I bring that up just to show that when we do a project, the 5.5 years we've been in business, we do everything by the book. Even if it means we gotta spend $800-900 on a variance meeting that we probably could have squeezed by. But we wouldn't do that. It's not how we operate. So that's also been provided in the agenda packet already too. Showing,
Here's my question, among others. First of all, what's the dimension of the proposed solar panel?
show you that. The dimension, the footprint is. Where's the design map? I can go to. Yeah, that's helpful. This gives you an idea of the actual property.
We saw that. I can't find in here anywhere what the dimensions of the solar panel proposed is. Proposed solar panel.
This will be helpful. So it's gonna be about 45 feet long. And then,
Can we have an exact number, figure here, or can it be reduced?
could it be reduced?
Yes.
It could, but then it wouldn't give the Roberts, the financial offset that they're looking to do, that would put them in an economic hardship.
Meaning, can you be more specific about
They
that?
wouldn't be able to have a fixed cost on their electricity. They'd still be subject to the inflation and rate increases that DTE has been putting on everybody.
We need 30 panels is what we're saying to meet our energy needs.
And to be able to
And
supply their
each panel is 3 feet wide.
3.5 feet wide, yeah. So it's gonna be about roughly 45 feet long. And then from the bird's eye, it's gonna be at 6 foot from the front to the top of the panels, because they go on a 30-degree tilt. So it'll be about a 6 foot footprint from bird's eye view. Does that make sense?
Not yet,
Okay.
not to me. Nick,
I
explain.
have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can any panels, can you move more panels to the west end of the array? Even having, you have them, I think.
If we could pull up some of the photos from the backyard, like where I took photos different parts of the day.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of shade that other parts of the backyard. Next page, yeah. As we start getting to the later portions of the day,
That pole barn's
the
gonna
pole
shade.
barn and that tree block where those moving them to the west would be. In the proposed spot we put, gets the max amount of sunlight in our entire 1.15 acres. Like it's. And you
It's
know,
it's right off the back of the septic field. The majority of it will be in compliance with the setback code. About a third of it is encroaching inside of that 50 feet. And that's why we brought that to the attention of the township, and we're like, are you guys sure?
Who measured the 38 feet from the rear setback to the panel?
I did with a
And who
wheel.
measured the 50 foot on the west side?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
just getting the record down.
Yeah,
here,
yes, sir.
Mr. Johns, because frankly, it's a little bit unclear. So that's what we're trying to establish. At least I am.
And I also want to point out that there are other properties already in Scio Township that are violating setback code. Your setback code for the property line here, this is their side property line is 20 feet. This is clearly not 20 feet from their
So let's,
property line.
let's get testimony on exactly what we're referring to.
So 5185 Pratt Road here in Scio Township.
Hold on just a second.
that's the one on Florence. The one.
Which drawing in our packet is the one you just referred to?
It's a picture in your packet.
Right, which one?
I'm not sure how they're labeled to be able to tell you
They're
that.
not labeled, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to give you that information.
So I didn't know what we were doing. I just-
This one. I drove by in Florence for the peak.
So the one that has 11 foot 9 inches on the overhead view in our packet is which address?
Is it Florence or?
That one's Florence.
This is Florence. I have the wrong address on the title.
I think so.
5185.
Florence.
I apologize. That's the Florence address then.
What is the address, Mr. Johns?
Tell you right.
It's 848.
848 Florence Road, Ann Arbor here. I have that labeled that photo labeled incorrectly. That's my fault.
Do we know, what are you basing the 11 foot 9 inch marking on?
The aerial over.
The aerial overview,
Who took the photo, who put the 11 foot 9 on it?
it was measured on Google Earth.
Who did that?
I guess whoever created Google Earth.
Who provided, who took the picture?
Oh, I just did a screenshot and measured it on Google Earth and took a screenshot of it and and provided it for you.
So what were you using as the property line?
The fence,
Do you have any other information on what the property line is besides that?
it matches up if you, no, I don't, actually.
Okay, and the other photo that it was submitted as presumably as evidence to show that there was another solar panel in the general area, which you believe also was not appropriately consistent with the Scio Township setbacks is which address?
It would be the 5885. I've got those reverse. 5185 Pratt Road, and that's a roof mount, actually.
Hold on.
So I believe we took that out of the agenda packet. I don't even think it's in here. It's not relative to this.
Do you have any other indication of any other
The
properties?
roof mount one, they had violated,
Sorry, when I'm
the
finished-
roof mount one, they
when I'm
violated
finished,
building
you can
code.
talk. When you're finished,
Apologies, go ahead.
go ahead.
The roof mount picture that was originally in the packet, I think we took out. Cause it wasn't relative, it was just showing there's solar in the area, but there were violations on the roof, building code for that one that somehow got by as well. But it's really not relative to the ground mount and setback codes for property lines. So we took it out, it didn't make sense to even bring it up.
Okay. Okay, so you can continue on.
I really don't have anything else to share other than I know that one of the letters that was opposing the variance from the property to the east, the builder, what's his
Yeah.
name?
Fingerly.
Fingerly, he was saying that it would be a detriment to the value of the property, and so I brought an appraisal of a property that was appraised that shows solar actually added $15,000 of equity to the value to the property. Cause they just submitted that November 19th. So this wasn't in your original packet.
If you have a document, Mr. Johns, that you wish to submit in support of that statement, please do so.
That's what I'm showing right now.
I don't know what that is. Tell me what it is. It's what?
It's an appraisal
Of what?
of a property
Of what property?
located at 11967 Riverbend Drive in Grand Blanc.
In Grand Blanc. And what's the purpose of inclusion of this?
To show that solar adds value to the property.
Is the property next door is getting $15,000?
No.
No, the person that was opposing the variance said that it would reduce the value of the property and the properties around it. This is to show in rebuttal to that, that an appraisal for a property that has solar was given a $15,000 increase to the value of the property because it has solar on it.
Well, if you want to, if you want to make a document out of that, we'll accept it as an exhibit. But you'll have to produce a document. We can't really do it this way. To show us a screen of something, frankly, I can't even read it, so.
I can share all these, I can share all this with you, if you want to get.
It is the petitioner's responsibility to produce whatever information the petitioner desires to use tonight, now.
I could put it on the flash drives that I gave you guys, if you want me to add it to those.
I have no flash drive.
I was asked to give you 2 flash drives and make 7 copies of all of this stuff. I provided that months ago. They should have flash drives.
Fran would have done that.
The office staff might have gotten it, but
They're not here right now.
The flash drives aren't here?
Well, the office staff isn't here.
Okay, I thought those would,
I think that if you use it, after hearing and, to supplement the record, we can make it part of the file.
Well, then we'd have to put this off to another date. There would be another fee involved.
If we table it and reconsider it, there's another fee.
I'm told by
Well,
Fran, based
We
upon,
don't, it doesn't,
excuse me, please. Two people can't talk at the same time. The problem that I got from the office staff last time around, we had the situation where there were 3 dates involved. We put it over twice. You remember the first one, then I did the second one. And not only did I get a lot of grief over it, but they wanted to send out another bill. And it was made perfectly clear to me that sort of thing is not going to be free. That's what I was told. So if this matter is going to be put over, let me ask you, are you willing to pay another fee?
I'm not sure, I'm not understanding why it would need to be put over. I mean, this was just brought up to me tonight. I added this to the documents because of the letter that came in 2 days ago. I don't think this is really relative to the variance being granted for the setback codes.
I agree. I don't think we need to add this to the official record, but also like, as a real estate agent and owner of a real estate brokerage, I can attest that I've sold many homes that have solar on them. They add value.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we acknowledge that
Okay,
position.
that's all,
Okay.
that's what, we were just trying to show support of that.
The question is, what would be the evaluation at the house next door
Well,
with the panels are? I mean.
The house next, there is no house next door to
Well, no,
these, like, they bought
The
it
letter
and-
says they're gonna they're gonna build it.
yes, and
And so my concern is, does their argument make sense that it's gonna hurt the value?
absolutely not. The solar doesn't hurt anybody, and here in Ann Arbor with the Ann Arbor Solarize program, giving out tax incentives,
So what
more
information do you
people,
have about that?
sorry,
He just asked a good one. If they met the setback, they could put it in. The neighbor's concerns don't matter. The value at this point is not relevant, the impact of value, because again, if it was in the setback, they
Right.
could do it, no
Mhm.
question. The question now is, do we give a variance on a setback based on the evidence provided by the applicant?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got to get. And I guess we should get back into the discussion
Thank
of
you.
the
thank you,
specifics.
Mr. Walsh. I agree.
And I still have some questions.
I have some questions too.
You'll
But
probably.
I'm gonna let you guys,
No, why don't we just ask questions?
let's-
That'd be great.
it looks like from the drawing you provided that the county rejected. You're putting just 2 rows of panels.
It's just,
So if you mentioned, I think 30 total,
30 total,
so
yes.
45 feet,
15 by, yeah.
yeah, 2 panels on top. That the length causes the problem with the setback.
On the
On the
right
eastern
portion,
side
yes,
of
correct.
the property. Also, and we'll get to this later, but I did speak with your husband. Pushing it too far causes some issues getting around the barn. I guess my
Yeah.
question is
And the
is-
shadows.
there any other, and I don't know the regs, is 3 rows of 10 a possibility?
it's not, yeah, it has, the ground mount that we use, it's made here in Michigan, the steel and the design of the racking. It only allows for 2 rows of panels, yeah, and I appreciate that thought, though.
Having,
The building,
Right, no, no,
building
I-
next door, I think, they've got 2
Yeah.
rows, yeah, like
Just
really.
like the fire station over here, I believe, yeah.
I had solar recently installed on my property. We had a number of different things. I've got a variety of issues with design. You were looking to keep this on one area. Is there a possibility of splitting it? It adds more cost.
It really wouldn't add more cost to split it, but there's nowhere else on the property where we could put it where it would actually be efficient to do its job. If we were to split it, we'd have to do two separate arrays. And then we would be absolutely moving closer to the property setback code. Because we couldn't move it forward, we'd have to move it backwards.
Move it forward towards the house.
To the south of the, drain.
That's right where the septic field is.
South of the
South.
drain.
That's where you get this, like your wells.
Yeah, the well is right there, yeah. The-
Yeah, our actual septic tank, and if,
I guess if I can get back
well,
where I
if we
was
scroll
going.
it, we'd basically almost be on top of the house at that point, once you get south of the septic field. And I did provide another photo that shows it also, in the,
Here,
yep, second page. Scroll down, yeah, like it still gets quite a bit of shade.
I guess where I was going with my questioning beyond if you can't split is my personal experience, we couldn't fit everything in the ideal location. So to get the power we wanted based on our use, we had to put some in a less desirable location, but we had to put more panels in, knowing full well that given the shade they were going to get, they were not going to be as efficiently placed as we would like. But the net effect was getting us to the power generation we wanted.
fair enough, and it sounds like you worked with a integrous company that's great to hear. That they were honest with you about how the shading is gonna affect your production.
Financially, this is already a stretch, having to get even more panels. Just to appease a neighbor who doesn't even live there and might not build for 10 years seems a very undue hardship on us. Like, we've been very thoughtful about where we want this, where it makes the most sense, like production wise, sustainability wise, cost wise.
Was just asking if it was considered.
Sorry.
If we were to add panels to the west, it'd be like selling them waterfront property in Arizona. I wouldn't wanna do that to anybody, cause they're gonna get too much shade there to even be worth it, you
Okay.
know? Yeah, it's a great question.
Questions.
It's a great question. Do we have any other questions? I do have a question, just out of plain curiosity. I've asked this question to quite a few people in the office, and I've asked, what was the purpose of the 50-foot setback code when it was first introduced?
Well, basically, all the setbacks are the minimum distance to, in certain residential or other areas to, in layman's terms, I believe, to keep people from living on top of each other and giving a little bit of distance. And it is a little bit. And it depends on where you are. But that's also taken into account in the types of areas that the property is. I mean, we have a lot of different as you know, from doing work here, we have a whole lot of different types. I mean, you're in R1. It's a very small, unfortunately small piece of property. For a lot of other properties in this area, as you know, are a lot bigger than that and offer more sunlight, for example. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, most people just tell me, and I appreciate that answer, most people just tell me, cause that's the way it's always been. That's a good answer.
Board of trustees can
Yeah.
change whatever zoning ordinance they are, but we, as the zoning board of appeal, live with whatever the setbacks are established.
Absolutely. And
So-
that's why we're appealing to you to make an exception, AKA a variance for that
Understood.
about 15-foot that's gonna impede into that setback code.
How many panels would you have to remove from the back of the east end of that?
We have to remove 8 panels on that east side, which is almost 30% of the array. which really would put them in a hardship because being able to produce enough power to keep their battery filled up requires enough production to do that. So if the power goes out for 3 or 4 days and they don't have enough panels to recharge those batteries, they're gonna be without power.
When you consider the roof mount, I understand that one concern was that, there's life left in the roof right now, and so you put them on and 15 years from now have to take them down and replace them. Where did you come up with the $12,000 figure?
Yes, their company as well as Oak Electric and Blue Raven have a fee of $400 per panel to remove and reinstall. And in 10 years, probably with inflation, it's probably gonna be 500.
To be fair, Evelyn, if you're our customer, we wouldn't charge you $400 per panel. When we work for companies customers, there's companies have gone out of business, we actually only do $350.
So $350 a panel.
We wouldn't charge you that. We'd probably only charge you $200 a panel.
Okay, well,
Just to cover labor expenses. We're not trying to price gouge folks.
so still it's additional at that point, $6,000 plus the cost of a roof, which is already.
And that's a great
12,000.
question. That's a great question. The other reason the roof isn't being considered is because again,
So shady.
they'd have to cut down some really mature, beautiful trees to create enough sunlight on that roof to make it a viable location. And nobody wants to do that.
So the roof mount is not viable at all under any circumstances for the sunlight?
Yes,
So
like it gets even less sunlight than the backyard, like 10 o'clock shady, 11 o'clock still shady. There's not, I think, a single time in the whole day that the entire roof is available. And we really do have some gorgeous trees, and by cutting those down, you're then eliminating, some of the natural shade protection and, cooling properties that they provide. So then you're running your AC even harder, using more power. Like kind of all the things you don't want to do for sustainable practices.
thank you.
So I just had a few questions. I just want to clarify, the back rear property line is at an angle. And because of the angle of the property line, like the easternmost third of what you're proposing is what you need the variance for.
Correct. That's very well stated.
Took me a while to get this clear in my mind. So most of my questions have been asked already, but I want to, in the letter that we received from the owner of the vacant parcel next door, they commented that if a variance is approved, they request that it include a requirement that a visual barrier be installed, such as a row of coniferous trees or shrubs. But even if a variance is approved or not, I mean, no matter what happens, the presence of the solar array is what they're saying they think will impact them. It sounds like, that's how I construe it.
I construed it more that they thought it was an eyesore.
Yeah.
It will be when it's
Yeah.
too close to the
But
property
it's,
line.
it's
and-
going to be an eyesore. I mean, it would be an eyesore anyway, even if it got moved.
Well, if they planted it. visual screen a lot.
Well, we're in the,
Okay, I know.
we're in the realm
I'm
of
digressing.
discussion at this point, so if you
Okay.
have any questions of
Okay.
the petitioner, perhaps we should conclude those.
And are you willing to put up some trees as a barrier or a buffer?
The fact is, they're asking for long, big trees that would create more shade, more shadows, kind of reducing the effectiveness of the solar panels. There isn't a house there. The builder can't speak to the mind of a buyer. That buyer might want to put solar panels as well. Lots of people are doing them. They're doing so many solar panel installations these days. And if they really hate it, they can put up a fence. We have a fence. They can put up a privacy fence. And again, we don't know if, and they're gonna even build on it for 15, 20 years. They were gifted that land by a previous family.
They're not even, unfortunately, they're not managing it either. They're over there cutting things and mowing the lawn to keep it looking nice. You guys could plant trees on their property, I guess. You're already mowing the lawn.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Questions over here?
There's a
Does the
long list of
petition-
them, but we got covered.
What's that?
I had a long list, but
Okay.
they've been asked.
Does the petitioner have any other evidence or witnesses to present?
I do not.
Okay.
I have one other question.
Too late. Okay.
Going back to this idea that I think Mr. Ross touched on too. If you were to take some of the panels off of the northeast end of that array and put them either partially to the west, a little bit to the west, or some to the north, making a 3-array stack. If there were, is there a way physically to do that? I understand that the systems that you install don't, they automatically come with a two panel wide structure. But is there any reason from a solar generation standpoint why a third row on the west side couldn't be constructed? Or is it just the system you provide doesn't account for that?
They make racking out of like fence posts that you could do a 3-row ground mount. They sink, they're the way they're installed on basically fence posts, they're not it's not a good product. It ends up now that would definitely look sloppy is basically what's gonna happen as things shift. With the ground mount steel that we use, we actually pound 14-foot posts into the ground 6 to 8 feet. And it's solid, you know, the cheaper way to do that with the fence posts racking, it starts to shift and it just looks horrible. And then it's risky for the project itself to be damaged down the road. It's not a good, again, it's not something I would want to put on somebody's property. It wouldn't be serving them well.
I'd also add that, you know, making it so much taller, then the neighbors will see it more. It will be more of an eyesore, like more, rather than being able to keep it fenced off and only in our backyard,
That's
that's
a good point.
only we have to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay. I'm done, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, and petitioner have anything else to present?
I don't think so. I think we've presented everything and.
Okay, great.
Need a motion to close the,
Not yet.
Okay.
Members of ZBA shall report on site inspection and any conversations with the petitioner. Mr. Walsh?
I was out Monday because I wanted to see the site in the sunshine. I saw one of the owners. I was leaving as he came in, so he gave me a tour of the site inside the fence. He asked me if I had any questions. I advised him that They would best be prepared to answer any questions in the Carlisle Wortman paper because those would get asked. I also mentioned they might benefit from going to the ZBA site and seeing how previous setback requests have been handled as a way of being aware of the process.
Mr. Shields?
Visited twice, didn't talk to anybody.
Okay, yeah, I was there once, I talked very briefly on the phone with Ms. Roberts just to ask permission to go over there at that time, and she graciously advised me that would be okay, and I walked over there and took a walk. Ms. Raby?
Yeah, I paid a visit to the site. There was nobody home, when I knocked on the door. So I took the liberty of walking to the back and looking at the site. Didn't talk to anybody there.
Ms. Knoll?
I visited on Sunday. It was a rainy afternoon. I talked to Evelyn Roberts. We walked the perimeter, looked at the neighboring parcels and looked at the exact site. So I was there
Any
for a
other
while.
conversation?
We did talk.
Okay, we're supposed to report on any conversations.
I asked her to point out exactly where the solar array would be. What were the boundaries? And she did. She showed me exactly where it was. I asked her about the neighbor who had written a supporting letter, which was the closest neighbor, the neighbor behind them.
Right.
And I looked at the
Those were
other
the-
parcels
yeah, okay.
that were on each side. That was about the extent of our discussion.
Great. Okay. Are there any members of the public who support the petitioner who would like to speak? Angela, anything?
No.
Nobody is here and nothing on Zoom. Are there any members of the public who oppose the petitioner desire to speak? Nobody here in the room? Anybody on Zoom, Angela?
No, I believe
Nothing.
our witness had his hand.
I just wanted to say thank you for going to the property. I've done a lot of these variance meetings over the last 5.5 years, and I honestly think you're the first board of people who've actually did some due diligence. So thank you for that. Feels like my money was well spent on the variance meeting.
Okay, no need for rebuttal since no one has spoken against. So I will, unless anyone else has any other questions.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Okay, move to close the public hearing by Mr. Walsh. Any
Second.
support? Support by Ms. Ramey. Mr. Shields, call the roll.
Walsh,
Yes.
Shields, yes, Noel,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Ramey.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing is closed and the ZBA will now deliberate on its own.
So I've been quiet up to now, so I'll start.
You have been very quiet, Mr. Shields, which is so unusual.
All my great questions asked. The thing I'm struggling with is I really appreciate the desire to deal with some very important environmental issues that we have. I think the township is working really hard at this. But as I look at the questions, I keep getting stuck on it, and it's a measurement question. One of the questions is, number 2, the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property right possessed by the property in the same zone. I don't know how we determine that it's a property right to have a panel 12 feet, 13-foot setback. I'm being very careful, and I keep every motion, and I looked at all of the motions last 3 years. We have never made a setback that large. We've argued over 2 feet. And here we are discussing a much larger amount on a concept that I don't know how to define to say that this is now a substantial right because of what's happening in our environment. So I am stuck there. I'd like some help.
Who can give Mr. Shields some help?
Well, I think the question is it a substantial property right to be able to have a solar array?
But we're about setbacks.
Well, no, I think Ms. Ramey is right. That is an initial question. And not to cut you off.
Right, and it's a right possessed by other property in the same zone vicinity, and I think the answer to that is yes. That doesn't necessarily mean that the right is to have it within a setback or have it in a manner that violates the code.
Right.
But the threshold question of, is it a right at all? I think is where, what we're being asked to decide there.
As an initial question, I agree with you. And I had the same one. And we had, remember when we had the generator, the whole house generator, and I voiced my opinion at that time that I thought that nowadays, the way things are going now, it is a substantial property right, although we did not decide it on that basis. But I think the same thing kind of applies.
Right, and we've had similar issues with having an outbuilding where you can keep snow removal, you know, your snow shovels and tractor if you've got, 5 acres.
So in all of those cases, we rejected them because of the setback.
Right,
Well-
and that's a separate question, no, but Ms. Ramey's correct. Is it a substantial property right? Doesn't mean
Right.
that it automatically says you're gonna get a variance. The question is a good one. And I think solar probably is now. I draw the line at swimming pools.
I would say for the township, solar is going to be, whether it is at the moment or not. It's going to be because it fits in with the whole sustainability climate action plan for the township. The township wants to be carbon neutral by 30 and for us, the township by 2035. To get there, residents are gonna have to put in solar to help reduce their carbon footprint. So
And partially, I agree. I don't know, I don't think we have to decide this on an absolute, it is a substantial property. I think we can sort of accept that at the moment.
Right, the
Yes.
question is the variance necessary
Necessary.
for that?
Well,
That, because it's a two-part thing. One is that there is that kind of, it is a property right that's important. But the harder question is the variance necessary
yeah,
in order to allow someone to have a solar array at all on this property?
and
And
that's,
that's where the question of reasonable alternatives comes in.
well, don't
Right.
forget also the exceptional circumstances.
Yeah, so
gotta
I
meet
wanted
that
to
too.
go, I wanted to talk about the septic field soil characteristics, and in our review letter, it's noted that
By Mr.
by Mr.
Luan.
Luan, acceptable soil for septic field could be considered unique circumstances to the property.
I agree with that.
Well, I don't even think I don't think it's necessary for the decision. I mean, it's an obvious, yes, of course. But it's not that, it's not because you're then disagreeing with the health.
Their options are limited.
Their
That's what I'm
options
trying
are-
to say.
The options are limited, that's correct. But, number one, can it be fit in there within the setbacks? And that's where I think we have a problem. Because you might want to put it in the best place on your property for your benefit. But I also think that if you have to move it to increase the setbacks or to meet the setbacks, and you're dealing with some shadows that otherwise wouldn't be there, I don't think you have that right. I don't think it exists.
well, I guess then we're getting.
We'd all like to have solar arrays that would do all of the electricity to our house. But you're on a small lot.
But the alternative is moving it and then cutting branches, limbs, or trees potentially to fit it in, and that goes against what we're trying to do as a township as well.
Or buying more panels so that even though they're.
Yes.
They're.
There is that,
less
yes.
efficient.
You can go the
And
more
that's-
panels.
But otherwise, then anybody who comes in here with the same property size is gonna, we have to almost automatically grant a variance. Because everybody in that area is gonna have, you know, if you have a one, it's a minimum 1 acre, some will be a little bit higher than that, but mostly in that 1 to 1.5 acre area. You're gonna have a house, you may have a barn, you might have a garage. But basically, if we're saying on this one that, yeah, we have to grant the variance, we're gonna have to grant the variance for all the others. Which really comes down to the board of trustees.
That's right.
Has the ability to change the ordinance if they feel it's appropriate.
And maybe for solar arrays, there should be a different setback.
Maybe. But there's a lot of other factors involved, which the board of trustees can deal with. But as far as us, the zoning board of appeals, I suggest it's a different story.
Well, we do have an option though. We don't have to grant the variance as is, we can grant the variance with conditions.
What conditions would really be effective here? Because, you know, the idea of putting up a tree brush area, it's kind of,
Well, that doesn't seem impossible because
Yeah, but
they're
it-
talking about a neighbor to the east.
is it really a condition we should place on this? I don't.
Let's be honest, the neighbor to the east is allowed to have an opinion, but the neighbor to the east isn't being infringed upon. The variance doesn't affect the neighbor to the east.
It's a good point.
Okay,
That's a good point. It would be the neighbor to the north.
The
who
neighbor
would
to the
have
north
objections.
who's in favor of
They're
this.
in favor of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So got two other things. First one is a small one. The whole time I was reading this, I was thinking about this setback in your comment about the generator being important to life. And in fact, I purchased one since then. But that was a 2-foot setback, I think.
it was
Very small. And this is, it said
This one is-
scale is different. And then his comment about being financially injurious is something that sticks with me. I mean, you can imagine sitting next door to it and not enjoying looking at it. And we've all said they're eyesore. I mean, that number of words come up from you guys even, that's an eyesore.
But
So I don't know what to do with that either, but that is also part of what's on my mind.
the neighbor to the east, whether it's an eyesore or not, is not infringed upon.
Say that again.
The neighbor to the east is not infringed upon. The setback to the side is not in question. It's the rear setback. If the setbacks were all right, they could build this, they wouldn't be here. And the guy to the east could be complaining all he wants. They're within their rights to build it. The question at the moment is the setback to the north.
But the logical extension of that then is, what do the setbacks really mean?
The only one I'm arguing is to the north. The neighbor to the east who's
I
arguing
understand.
about the eyesore.
I understand, but doesn't the neighbor to the east have the same desire to make sure that all the setbacks are enforced in the township?
All I'm saying is yes, but if they cut it off, the eyesore is still going to be there.
Yeah, that's why I think that the bushes and everything is a non-starter. You're bursting at the seams.
Well,
Ms.
you know,
Hart.
I'm torn. I am torn. When I visited the site, I thought this will be simple. This will be a clear discussion. But now it's more complicated than that. It's much more complicated than that, and the one neighbor raising some issues does, even though the lot is vacant, it, it does raise some issues. And I mean, I still am leaning in favor of granting the variance. But yeah, I'm close to going the other way too, so that's where I am.
I would say I would love to, but I can't in good conscience support it.
I can understand.
Yeah, I'm struggling with it too, because what I really think we have here, I think we meet most of the criteria, but not the one of necessity. I mean, in general, economic hardship doesn't mean necessity. And what we have here, it seems to me, is an economic problem, that it would be more expensive to find a way to meet the setback. Either more expensive in locating panels in different spots, or getting more panels because they're some of them are more shaded and going to be less efficient. But one way or another, I don't see this as an impossibility question, much as I would like to grant this.
Since I've been on the ZBA, we have turned down variances for clever design, because that's not our function. Our function is to enforce the setbacks. And I
Well, our
guess,
function is also to allow a variance from the setbacks for the reasons that are stated.
and
But otherwise, yes, yeah.
And where I'm getting at, and I think we've asked the question, the alternatives, there are alternatives. They weren't part of the deck. Now we're speculating on what can or can't be done and what the extra cost is or isn't. And that's really on the applicant, not on us.
Yeah, we've decided several times over, we're not in the job of looking
Say,
for
Mr.
alternatives.
Shields, I can't quite hear.
So we've had several discussions in the last few years about our job is not to look for alternatives, it's just to look at facts. And we've been very creative over the years coming up with it. Decided it's not our job.
That's fair, and I think maybe what I'm talking about is speculating on alternatives. I mean, the testimony has been that it's gotta be here or nowhere.
The testimony is it's gotta be here to generate the power they wanna generate.
Yeah, and
Elsewhere gets into less efficient. And it's not that elsewhere isn't possible, it's just, it becomes more costly. And since we've been talking about updating the solar ordinances in the planning commission, we haven't been talking about individual properties and changing those setbacks as I remember it. But even still, they're not, even if we were, they're not on the books. We have to deal with the ordinance as is. And I guess I'm struggling with the same thing you are. My gut is this is what the township wants. Between the barrier of the septic field and the reserve, and the barrier of the angle because of how John Holmes drives, they are constrained with an optimal choice for their solar array. Those things preclude an optimal solar array unless we grant the variance. The question then becomes, is that sufficient given what the township wants and is striving towards to grant the variance in this instance? And again, we have to remember each of these are unique decisions. Or do we take into account, which has been discussed, which is the optimal isn't a criteria for our decision making.
So when you ask what the township wants, I can't obviously speak on behalf of the entire township board, but we have a new board, and I can say that environmental concerns are at the top of our list, and the planning commission too. I mean-
It's on the website,
Yeah.
environmental sustainability
Yes.
action plan.
Yes.
And it's,
A change in the ordinance typically is initiated by the planning commission. And then will come to the township board and then would be discussed extensively. But this may raise the issue of a change in setback requirements for a solar array.
Or requirements of the health department.
No, I don't think you'll be able to, I don't think you'll be able to tackle those boys and girls up there. But it's like the road commission. Well, let's not go there.
No, it's not that bad.
Um,
I mean, I can raise this issue at our next board meeting,
Yeah.
and you
but
should
that's-
raise it at the planning.
and it's part of, we've had the discussions, they're ongoing, it's going to take time.
Not gonna help these.
It
animals.
doesn't help tonight.
The question really ultimately the board of trustees is gonna have to deal with is something that is pretty basic. And, you know, do you really want to change all this? There's a lot more to it than just,
And we'd have to look into that. I
yeah,
mean, we have
but.
Doug Luan, who's listening to all of this. I'd like to hear if he has any comments on it. Oh,
I think he said it in his report.
well, I still like to hear from him.
It's a fair ask.
Doug, are you awake?
Yes, I'm awake. Yep, I'm riveted. So. Yeah, my issue with this variance is with the drawings themselves. I mean, I think we're always supposed to try to determine if there are alternatives that are conforming. And the lack of a scale drawing, the lack of knowing how big the applicant talked about how big the array was going to be, but I haven't seen that. It helps me in my head to see something graphically on a piece of paper to know that this is the only alternative. And I can't determine that. And I can't add to anything that's in my report because, Tom's right, that's my report. And then, I'm here listening to your conversation and I think it's a very good thought process and coming to a conclusion. But in addition to what I've heard you guys saying, the lack of a scale drawing is difficult for me to at least take that out of my head that there's no alternatives. I think you saw in my report, I said, why can't they just move it to the west? Why? And it seems like there's some other alternatives discussed tonight, but that's my main issue with this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Perhaps we should ask if they would like to table this and.
If there is, there'll be another fee,
How much is the fee?
a lot. Well, how much were they charged here?
800.
Doug, how much were they charged here?
$890.
I guess that gets into the
So-
question. We have, and
That's
again,
about it.
maybe this is a question for Doug. We had the many hands discussion Tuesday where we postponed. So we closed the public hearing, but we never initiated the discussion. Does that trigger for them another fee? I'm just wondering what the official terminology is. We're not actually looking, we've closed the public hearing. All we're looking for is additional information from the applicant. And as we've talked previously on things, when we've had, if the applicant doesn't show, we give them the grace, but it's not at the next month's meeting, it's at the next scheduled meeting. So we're not incurring the cost just for this. Is there a way to postpone to the next meeting to avoid.
But it's not gonna have, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah, I know, but.
Process
we-
solutions.
We
Two
went,
months
we went through
because,
the same thing
December
with,
meeting is canceled.
we went through the same thing once before, and you know, all I heard was, you know, charge another fee.
and again, I was,
Twice,
yeah,
twice.
Who told you that?
I mentioned no names, but it's who you would think.
Okay.
Well, I will say that a big part of the fee, I don't know what township, I don't know what the township would charge. But I know one of the big parts of the fee is the republication of the public notice, and you wouldn't need that because they're not asking for a different variance. So there's
And
no
the
need for a
payment-
second, no need for a second hearing.
And a payment for the fee of the ZBA members. And the staff that are dealing with it. And then when there's additional information of any sort, if there's any discussion whatsoever, then you're really reopening the public hearing. Because you'd have more questions and the applicant would have to explain certain things and I'm really trying to discourage the same thing we've had before. And I'm sure that there'll be another fee, so.
You know, I'm not a visual person, so for me, seeing a better drawing is not gonna make a difference in the issues that I am grappling with. I don't see any reason to put these poor people through this again.
So I know where you are. Where are you, Dan, on this? I'm sorry. It's been a long day.
It's been a long
I'm so
day.
sorry. Thank you.
I'm struggling because I've said in the past, like to be consistent. And I pretty much consistently would have said no to this. Mine at the moment, we've talked about I'm leaning, but very slightly towards a yes. But it's only in the fact that we're striving to do this in the township. I guess that's it. That's where I'm leaning.
It's kind of where I'm leaning. I'm slightly towards yes.
I'm slightly towards no.
Me too. Sorry,
It's okay. It's okay.
you know.
I understand.
No,
This
I
one's
mean,
very close.
this is the conversation. I mean,
Very
no,
close.
Bob, this is why we meet. This is why we talk.
Yeah, well, I just think, everything else aside, it's still trying to fit something in that really can't be fit in. The way that the applicant wants it, which is what we've seen many times before. If we were talking about a 2.5 acre lot, different story. I'm sure, unless it's full of trees. But, you know, the thing is, what do you want? Trees or do you want solar? I mean, and that's not a real question, but the idea is, what are your priorities? How can you satisfy everybody? You can't. You got a 1.1 something acre lot, you're really trying to put something in there that really doesn't quite fit. So is that good enough by itself to get a variance? Well, then you get to the exceptional circumstances, not the fact that there's you know, like all of us, there's a septic field and a reserve that they're requiring now. And all of a sudden, maybe your lot isn't big enough for what you want. What about a garage? Will we have turned this down if it was just a garage? Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
So then you're really saying, should we elevate solar panel on the evidence that was given to us here today? And frankly, I just don't see it. And I'm not to really put the onus on Mr. Johns, who was making the presentation at the time, but I had the same problem that Mr. Luan said too. This is not a scale drawing, it seems.
Yeah.
And
true.
I'm getting a lot of approximations, 12 foot, 15 foot. And I think the responsibility is on the applicant to do that.
We have had that in the past. Drawings that weren't to scale.
And the last time we did it, we gave the petitioner a break twice, and then we turned it down.
But again, we're not making our decision based on the, how pretty the paperwork is. I understand those comments and maybe that might help our, understanding of the situation a little bit, but, that I don't think is really the basis for making a decision. But I really think it's a question of, do you look at your property and say, how much solar can we do given our property? Or do you say, here's how much solar we want, and then try and shoehorn the property rights into that approach?
I think you're right.
And I do think for almost any other kind of improvement, if it were a deck or an outbuilding or, whatever, we probably wouldn't be struggling with this at all.
No, we weren't.
But I think that the fact that we do think that as a matter of public policy, we want to encourage solar is where all of us are getting stuck. And I think that's a policy question that the trustees should be looking at. And maybe our instinct is that solar should be treated differently than some other improvements. But I'm not sure that, I don't see that as our function on the zoning board of appeals.
So I
agree.
was stuck on exactly this point. I kept thinking, well, it's up to the township to deal with. We've got this situation now.
Yeah.
Horrible as it is for us to be in.
And the township would have certainly within its rights to say, hey, we want the solar, we want to encourage it. But we still want the setbacks. Because once you really do start giving up on the setbacks, and as I said before, it's like, to me, it's a minimum, to keep from living on top of each other. And that's been the way for how many years now? Well, these things were passed in the 70s.
And I think policies are changing and,
Yeah.
And we ought to be
That's
looking at that.
legitimate.
But again, that's not, we have to deal with the ordinances the way they're written.
I'm gonna add to my comment a minute ago. I kept wishing that there's some way we could use this as a catalyst to move us along in that process.
Well, maybe we can, but it's gonna be too late for
Well,
that.
I know. I don't know what we do about that.
I'll bring it up when we revisit the solar ordinances.
I mean, I think the answer is that they don't get as much solar as would be optimal. And then have to decide whether that's deal breaker or not,
That makes a lot of sense.
unfortunately.
Well, we can only test it at this point by motion. So I was solicit a motion from somebody.
Oh, I'll give it a shot.
All right.
This is gonna be garbage, but you all will fix it up.
Take your time, Patrick.
In the matter of the variance number 24007, Spencer, Neville and Roberts by North Coast Star for the 5216 Pratt Road, H-08-15-396-001 to allow reduction in the required 50-foot rear yard setback to 38 feet to allow a ground-mounted solar array pursuant to section 36-75, schedule for regulation of the Scio Township zoning ordinance The requested variance should not be granted due to the following findings. The property is zoned R1, single-family residential with the required 50-foot backyard setback. The applicant's request was approved for a conforming accessory structure location in August 2024. The county health department required a change in location due to the array resting on the existing septic field on site. The septic system location has caused a need for the rear yard setback variance. Okay, so the yard does not have the space to set up an optimal array. The conforming location seems to be more appropriate than location. No, skip that. The Ann Arbor Student Building Industry Program, which owns the vacant next parcel to the east of 5216, plans to build and sell a home on the parcel. They are concerned that the array will not be in keeping with the existing neighborhood and will negatively impact the financial value of their planned home. The neighbors at 5045 John Holmes, immediately to the north, wrote a letter of support in the variance because the project will be an example to the community of environmental responsibility. The neighbors, the Toths, spoke out in support of the project for the same reasons. Wait a second, I need to think a little bit more. Okay, there are not exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes of use in the district. There are no exceptional, extraordinary circumstances and conditions applicable to this property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same district. The variance is not necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial property right possessed by the property in the same zone. In response to our community concerned about the environment and climate change, many solar arrays are being installed in Scio Township. Ground-mounted solar arrays are becoming more common with residential districts. However, these arrays are not a substantial property right that is sufficient to justify a setback. The granting of such variance or modifications will be materially detrimental to the public welfare or materially injurious to the property or improvements in such district in which the property is located. The value of the home to be built on the neighboring property will be materially injurious to the builders and the homeowner. The granting of such a variance will not adversely affect the purpose or objectives of the master plan of the township. Absent exceptional circumstances, which would otherwise result in substantial injustice, the circumstances or conditions upon which the variance is based do result from the actions of the applicant or his predecessor in title. There are no exceptional circumstances in the request is due to the actions of the applicant. Location of septic tank is a reason for the request. The location was chosen by the predecessor in title. The variance request is because the owner desires a solar array which is larger than the capacity of the yard. That's what I got.
I would suggest, offer one amendment,
Sure.
which is that, I don't believe I would, support a finding that that having a solar array is not a substantial property right. In other words, I would be prepared to make a finding that being able to have a solar array, at least in conformity with township regulations,
Perfect.
is a substantial property right.
Yes.
But that in this case, in order to exercise that property right, we don't find that the variance is strictly necessary, given the possibility of some alternatives which may be less attractive, but at least they do exist.
Mr. Shields, would you agree with the amendment stated by Ms. Ramey?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Mr. Walsh?
I make an amendment. I think it's fair to say that the neighbor to the east believes it will be injurious to him. I don't think we can state in ours that it will be injurious because we have no data supporting that.
I agree.
Mr. Shields, do you accept an amendment as stated by Mr. Walsh? to
I
the
actually
motion?
struggle with that very question.
Do you accept the amendment?
I do.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Shields to deny the request for a variance. Is there support?
Let's go for it.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Shields, supported by Ms. Ramey to deny the motions for the reasons stated. Any discussion? Then Mr. Shields, call the roll.
Hoff,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Walsh,
No.
Shields, yes, no,
No.
3 votes in favor of the motion, 2 against, correct?
yes.
Yes.
Then the motion passes. At this time, I will sign a decision of the zoning board of appeals to deny and ask Mr. Shields to present this to the applicant.
Wait, somebody else can do this.
Thank you.
I don't believe you're sorry. Scio Township talks about how they want to be environmentally sustainable. You're gonna see more and more people on 1 acre lots that have septic issues and setbacks that we didn't control where those were put. You're gonna see it more and more often, and you're gonna have to make allowances because people are trying to be sustainable and not relying on DTE. This is hurtful and it's harmful. You should be ashamed. And you went back to immediately of, this is how it's always been done. This is how it's always been done. We're sick of how it's always been done because it's not been done right.
Okay, the next.
Thanks for your time
item
tonight,
on the
guys.
agenda is the old business. Any old business? Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have minutes of September 19th, 2024. Any corrections? I read them and I could not find any. Personally.
Usual, they were good.
Move to adopt?
I'll support.
Motion by Ms. Ramey to adopt the minutes, supported by Ms. Knoll. Any discussion? Called roll.
Shields, yes, no,
Yes.
Hoff,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, minutes are adopted. Next item on the agenda is other business, including report of the planning commission liaison.
That would be me.
Speak.
Couple of things I think there's always go to the website, see what we've been talking about. I'm not gonna go through each item. There are, I guess, a few things out there. We met today at 4 o'clock for the Jackson Road Advisory Group 5th meeting to hand over their findings to the planning commission. That's on the website. I think Doug made an excellent summation of the key points of the group. I'm not gonna read them to be brief, but the planning commission will take those into account and go forward.
Anything,
The thing that comes up, I think, utilities are the big thing, water and septic. We only have so many REUs available that if we're going to do any high density residential in the Jackson Road district, we've got to be very careful we don't run out of water and septic or sewage.
It's sewer.
Yeah,
Sewer
sewer,
capacity
right.
is the issue.
so
And
what do we do?
What will happen and what has happened in the past is Scio Township will enter into negotiations with the city of Ann Arbor to attempt to expand their sewer capacity. Last time those negotiations took 5 years. So we'll see. Right now, we haven't even started it, but there are monthly meetings going on right now with Scio Township Utilities. I'm on this committee, so I'm attending these meetings, and the city of Ann Arbor, water and sewer. We're discussing capacity issues and other issues with water. You know, it's more capacity with sewer, but other issues with water.
And the answer is at the moment for things that have been approved, that's just not an issue. This is an item going forward. There's discussion about creating nodes around Wagner, Zeeb, and Baker as far as going forward in thinking of planning of what we want the overlay district to be, to consider that. There's a lot to look at from a planning commission of not where we are now, but where do we want to go? As I said, we've discussed in the planning commission, solar ordinances, the focus predominantly has been with community solar, not individual solar. The large scale solar is being dealt with at the state level. But I think this meeting might be an incentive to go back and have another chat about at the residential level if we need to change anything. And the other one that came up, one of the meetings since we last met, was looking at childcare ordinances. And is there anything we can do to make that more feasible in Scio Township? Those are the big things.
And you had the many hands initial.
We had the initial preliminary PUD on Tuesday for many hands on Baker Road. We had the public hearing. We closed and didn't have the planning commission discussion, recognizing we probably weren't going to reach a conclusion, and with turnover because of the new board and new board of trustees and the fact that one of the members is now treasurer, and we were gonna have a vacancy, we would hold the discussion when the new members join. Or at least one of the new members join. We won't have two.
Okay,
And the next meeting, I think, is December 2nd, and that's the only one for the rest of the year.
next item on the agenda is 2025 CBA meeting schedule. After this came up at, I think, the September meeting, if I'm correct, we talked about it. Nobody had any problems with it, and I was advised that perhaps it would have been best if we voted on it. So I suggested that we bring it up at the next meeting. Hopefully there would be one before the end of the year. And so, what's that?
It was canceled.
What was canceled?
Maybe December 19th, meeting, no business.
We're talking about today.
Oh, today.
So I would solicit a motion to approve the calendar for 2025 as contained in our packets.
I'll support.
I'll move.
Moved by Mr. Walsh and supported by Ms. Knoll
Oh, I thought you
in some order.
can't.
That is probably a little bit odd, but nevertheless, so motion to approve, Mr. Shields.
This is not on my paper.
Well, you're gonna have.
I know. Noel,
Yes.
Oth,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes.
Shields, yes.
Okay, motion passes. The calendar is adopted for 2025. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Citizens wishing to address the zoning board of appeals on matters which are not on the public hearing portion of the agenda. Each speaker shall identify him, herself by name, and such oral presentation shall be limited to 3 minutes, except a representative or spokesperson of an organization shall have 5 minutes to address the board, provided that if more than 5 citizens express a desire to speak, the chairperson in his or her discretion may limit the time of comment. Anybody with any public comment?
Yes,
All right, go ahead.
Ron Pattinson.
Hello, Mr. Pattinson, how are you?
Hello, Mr. Roth. Very good.
Go ahead.
First of all, I would like to thank this board for your considered discussion and the depth of your discussion. Clearly, the world and Scio Township is in transition. And as Commissioner Walsh knows, solar is a significant issue in front of the Planning Commission. I'm very glad that Commissioner Walsh and Trustee Knoll are here on this board to take this information back to their boards. Secondly, I would like to sincerely thank Commissioner Walsh for his compelling advice to the applicant to prepare for this presentation by watching or looking at previous presentations. Watching several years of this committee, it is clear that preparation is absolutely critical to an application. And lastly, I'd like to let the board know that Scio Township recently decided to spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $340,000 on a geothermal HVAC system for the township hall because it will be more efficient. And we have the fire department with their solar array. And I would just like to note that on Google Earth, it looks like the fire department's solar array is about 25 feet from the side property line on their parcel. So that might be a consideration for the future, but
It maybe in a different zoning district too, Mr. Pattinson.
of course. I'm just noting the fact that their particular array is close to the side. But I sincerely appreciate the depth of this discussion, and clearly some changes need to be made at the Planning Commission level and at the board level. And I'm very grateful that you are, and I too hope this is a trigger for those changes. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pattinson. Anybody else with a hand raised?
No,
And there's nobody here, so
Move to adjourn.
what's that?
Move to adjourn.
A motion made to adjourn by Mr. Walsh, supported by
support.
Ms. Knoll.
Yes,
Oh.
sure.
Ramey.
Oh,
She
I
was
wasn't
saying
looking.
it.
all right, by Ms. Knoll and Ms. Ramey. I'll call the roll.
We'll do Noel first.
Who?
Noel first,
Yes.
since you were the. Ramey,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Shields. Yes, Roth.
Yes. Okay, the meeting is adjourned something around 9:04. Thank you.